Hey guys. Well, let's begin. Tonight we glide backward through time, past the flickering glow of your bedside lamp, through layers of sand and shadow, until you find yourself standing beneath a sky that's impossibly black, pricked with stars like tiny gold pins in velvet. There's no noise, no breeze, just the huff of a camel somewhere far away, and the whisper of linen robes brushing stone. Here in Egypt, ancient Egypt, and you're not just here to sightsee, you're wearing a crown. It itches. Golden, heavy, and more ceremonial than comfortable, this thing feels like it's balanced on your head, purely to remind you that you're supposed to be divine. But it's also got a habit of sliding when you sweat, and to be honest, you probably won't survive this. So, before the lights go out, click like and subscribe, but only if you're brave enough to return tomorrow night. Drop your location and the local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan, because silence makes this story worse. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly up the polished stone ramp toward your throne, carved from white alabaster, gleaming under the torchlight. But nothing about this moment is yours. The room is filled with eyes. Priests with shaved heads and unreadable faces, scribes holding scrolls full of words you can barely understand, and advisors already whispering behind your back. You're just a boy, or maybe a girl, because Pharaoh wasn't really about gender. The title meant great house, and that house came with servants, spies, curses, and so much sand. The palace smells like incense and fish. You're not just ruler of Egypt, you're the human embodiment of Horus, the falcon god of the sky. This means you can never yawn in public. You can't cry, sneeze, or trip on a staircase without it becoming a religious crisis. And honestly, those stairs are steep. You sit, finally, and the throne feels colder than expected. A scribe reads a list of your titles, and it takes several minutes. The crown itself is misleading. It's not one crown, it's many. There's the white one from Upper Egypt, the red one from Lower Egypt, the double crown for when you're feeling diplomatic, the blue war crown, which looks like something a traffic cone would wear to a party, and the Neem's headcloth. Yes, the one from all the emoji. And of course, there's the uraeus, that little rearing cobra on your forehead. It's not just for looks. It's supposedly magical. Legend says it could spit fire at your enemies. Historians still argue whether this was metaphor or just early PR. But beneath all this ritual, there's something stranger. Because no matter how divine you pretend to be, the pharaoh's life is weirdly lonely. You're separated from commoners by ceremony, from your advisors by fear, and from your own family by, well, complicated reasons we'll get to soon. And the desert, oh, the desert never lets you forget. It presses in on the city like a fist. Sand creeps into your sandals, your soup, your scrolls. Some nights you swear it whispers your name, probably just wind through the papyrus stalks. Probably. Despite your godlike status, you're already haunted by death. Not in a poetic, Shakespearean way, more like in an architects have already started building your tomb kind of way. Yep, they begin as soon as you ascend the throne, because pharaohs don't get retirement. They just get an increasingly elaborate underground bunker, where their organs will be pickled in jars shaped like animal heads. And if you think ruling a nation of millions in 2500 BCE was a glamorous job, well, have we mentioned the crocodile dung sunscreen yet? Real thing. Mixed with oils, it was smeared on royal skin as protection. Effective? Debatable? Fragrant? Absolutely not. Still, you're expected to radiate order, justice and matat. That's the cosmic balance of the universe. Every sneeze, decision, or cloud you see is weighed against your moral and divine authority. You're basically the universe's customer service manager, but with more eyeliner. Oh, and that eyeliner? It's made from crushed galena, a lead-based mineral. On the bright side, it might have helped protect your eyes from sun and infections. On the less bright side, there's a non-general chance it's slowly poisoning you. But hey, fashion hurts. From time to time you attend public ceremonies, riding through the streets in a golden litter, waving solemnly like a demigod who's also just really tired. The commoners toss flower petals and sing hymns. You nod, pretending not to notice that some of them are just throwing petals to distract you from the rising bread prices. You dream of pyramids, not because you want to build one, that's expensive, but because they haunt your imagination. What if your soul really can't pass into the afterlife unless your body is perfectly preserved, your name is remembered, and your tomb is sealed? And what if some grave robber with a donkey cart and a chisel is waiting just outside the Valley of the Kings, ready to undo it all? Sometimes at night, you sneak out to the palace rooftop. The stars here don't twinkle, they burn. The Nile winds like a black ribbon in the distance, and the breeze carries the scent of lotus and fire. You don't feel powerful up here. Just small. Just human. You wonder if the gods ever had to sit through 3-hour incense rituals, or if they get to sleep in. Down below, the palace stirs. The vizier is waiting with new scrolls. The priests want a ceremony at dawn, and someone's goat has escaped into the royal garden again. You rise. You adjust your crown. It still itches. You're back in the palace now, deeper in the inner rooms where no commoner would ever set foot. These are the chambers of family. Except, calling it family might be generous. This isn't the kind of household where anyone makes pancakes on Sundays. It's more tightly wound, knotted, a little too interested in your bloodline, and not just metaphorically. You pass a hallway lined with murals of gods with animal heads, ancestors staring straight ahead with those ever-wide, coal-outlined eyes, and you, painted in profile, even though you haven't earned the right to be painted yet. That's the thing about being Pharaoh. They start memorializing you the moment you stop coughing long enough to wear the crown. But you're not alone in this vast perfumed prison. Behind the curtain of scented oil and incense smoke are wives. Plural, lots of them, and cousins, and sisters, also plural, which makes things awkward, because many of your wives are also your sisters. Yes, that kind of awkward. It's not that ancient Egypt was short on people. There were plenty of citizens, courtiers, even royal ladies from foreign kingdoms eager to marry into Egyptian power. But see, keeping the bloodline pure was important, so important, in fact, that the gods themselves supposedly married their siblings. Isis and Osiris, Shu and Tefnut. So naturally, if it was good enough for the gods. You learn early to smile politely when someone suggests your sister would make a fine queen. But she's 7, you say. So are you, they reply. Historians still argue whether these sibling marriages were always consummated or just symbolic. Either way, the weddings happened, and the family tree began to look suspiciously like a wreath. Inside your chambers, the scent of lotus oil hangs heavy in the air. Your mother, who might also be your aunt, depending on which scroll you read, is brushing your hair. Her fingers are gentle, but there's a calculation in her eyes. Every royal woman knows the real power lies not in the crown, but in who births the next pharaoh. And there are rival queens waiting to seize that advantage. You have a great royal wife, basically the first lady of ancient Egypt. She gets the most jewellery, the biggest quarters, and the most flattering wall art. Then there are the secondary wives, usually a mix of noble Egyptians and diplomatic tokens from foreign kings. One poor girl arrived by boat from Mitanni with 50 jars of frankincense and a letter of introduction written on clay. Her name was too long to carve, so the scribes just called her that one from the north. It's not all romance and rose petals. Royal harem life was part gossip arena, part political cage match. Jealousy brewed behind linen veils. Some women poisoned rivals with lotus root wine. Others gave birth to sons they claimed were yours. Whether or not that was true, and since you were often too busy irrigation schedules and praying to the sun, you had no idea who was actually in your family anymore. One particularly infamous moment still echoes through the palace. When Thier, a powerful queen mother, allegedly orchestrated palace marriages and state policies without ever leaving her bedchamber. Historians aren't sure how much was real power and how much was rumour. But let's be honest, if someone can rule an empire in their slippers, that's iconic. The harem was also a danger zone. Yes, it was lavish garden courtyards, music, cosmetics, exotic pets. But it wasn't just for luxury. Several pharaohs had to deal with full-blown conspiracies bubbling from within those perfumed walls. One infamous incident from the reign of Ramses III involved a plot to assassinate him, orchestrated by a harem wife and her son. The plan involved magic wax figures, scrolls of spells, and at least one overconfident guard. The plot failed, but it left a scar and a warning. Trust no one who kisses you goodnight. Even your children aren't safe from the game. Sons were often declared heirs, only to vanish mysteriously later. Daughters became bargaining chips in political marriages, or were married to their own fathers to consolidate divine authority. Again, awkward. You sit in the central courtyard now, watching the wives parade by in their finest linen. They all smell like myrrh and mangoes. One of them smiles at you sweetly, another adjusts her wig with just a touch too much disdain. A monkey in a tiny gold collar scurries past. You wonder if the monkey understands court politics better than you do. Probably. Still, even in the chaos, there's a strange sense of comfort. The harem has its rhythms. Music drifts from a corner chamber. A harp, soft and slow. The women gather to paint one another's nails with henna, trade love charms made from crocodile teeth, and recite poetry that might be innocent, or might be a thinly veiled threat. You walk past one chamber and catch sight of an old love poem etched into the wall. If I could be the servant who brings you water, I'd carry the jar with trembling hands. Spill half just to see you laugh. You pause. That kind of tenderness isn't usually allowed in public. But here, where the rules are unwritten and shifting, maybe there's room for it. A fringe theory some modern scholars float, though others scoff, is that some of these harems functioned as informal diplomatic think tanks. That the foreign wives weren't just trophies, but secret informants, subtle influencers on policy, pushing their native land's interests into Egypt's ear, while painting their lips with crushed carnelian. Whatever the truth, it's dizzying. You retreat to your sleeping chamber, pull sheer linen curtains around the ivory bed, and lie still as the walls breathe with shadows. Somewhere out there, someone else is deciding who will marry whom, who gets crowned, who gets erased. You just try to remember the names of your wives. And your sisters. And which ones are both? You wake before the sun, as always, not because you're eager, but because you're expected. And when you're Pharaoh, that's basically the same thing. The servants arrive before your eyes even open, their footsteps soft as whispers on the polished limestone floor. A girl with her hair braided in loops places a dab of honey on your lips, part ritual, part breakfast. Someone else sprinkles crushed lotus petals into your bath water. Your life smells like a bouquet and feels like a performance. Today, you're not just Pharaoh. You're a child Pharaoh, which means you rule everything. In theory. In reality, you're surrounded by adults who claim they're just helping until you're old enough to understand the complexities of statecraft. But somehow, they never leave. You're led into the antechamber of your morning lessons. And oh joy, it's time for sacred geometry. Again, your tutor, a man who smells like dust and authority, draws pyramids on a waxboard and lectures about how their dimensions are aligned with the stars. He says this proves that you're divine. He nods solemnly, while wondering if the stars really care about how many cubits wide your cousin's tomb will be. But you're learning more than math. You're being taught how to walk with dignity, how to raise one eyebrow imperiously, how to tilt your head just enough during rituals to suggest you're half listening to mortals. They even make you rehearse looking bored in a holy way. It's exhausting. You sit through scroll after scroll of state affairs, tax complaints from fishermen in the delta, requests from temple officials for more barley, someone asking whether a crocodile counts as a tax-deductible offering if it's still alive. You're 9. You'd rather be playing Senate. Your days blur into rituals and recitations, and always under watchful eyes. Priests monitor your every word. Advisors whisper like snakes in your ears. Even your own shadow seems like it might report back to someone. You have the power of the gods, but no privacy whatsoever. One morning, your nursemaid applies crocodile oil to your arms to ward off the evil eye. She murmurs a protective spell while tying a blue amulet around your wrist. You ask her if it works. She just smiles and pats your cheek. You're also given the royal regimen, a strict routine of baths, blessings, and strangely sour snacks that are supposed to cleanse your soul. One potion tastes suspiciously like dirt and figs. The court physician insists it balances your humours. You wonder if your humours are too sarcastic. Despite the pageantry, childhood isn't exactly joyful here. Most pharaohs didn't live very long. Thrones were inherited by boys barely old enough to lift a scepter. Take Tutankhamun, who became king around age 9. He was still learning to hold a pen correctly, while advisors made state decisions in his name. By the time he hit puberty, his bones were fragile, his teeth were misaligned, and his foot was so deformed he needed a cane. His entire adult life lasted about as long as a modern middle school phase. And yet you're taught that you are the axis mundi, the centre of the universe. Every grain of sand, every breeze off the Nile, every storm over Thebes happens because you exist. That's a lot of pressure for someone whose biggest personal achievement today was not spilling goat milk on their tunic. The temple priests remind you that as Horus on earth, your spirit will live on in eternity, but only if you uphold Ma'at, the principle of order and harmony. Ma'at is beautiful in theory and exhausting in practice. It means you can't randomly cancel ceremonies because you're tired. It means you can't run down the palace halls yelling. It means you definitely can't tell your cousin that the embalming chants sound like someone gargling mud. You're being moulded, smoothed, shaped into something less human and more divine. And it's uncomfortable. Occasionally you get a break from the palace. You travel by gilded bark along the Nile, waving from beneath an ornate canopy. Locals chant prayers and toss flowers into the water. You wave back, trying to look godlike, but you're mostly trying not to sneeze from the pollen. At one of these river stops, an elderly farmer presents you with a carved wooden toy, a cat with wheels. You smile and accept it, even though one of your guards looks like he wants to throw it in the river. That toy ends up on your shelf next to golden ankhs and scrolls you haven't read. It becomes the one thing in your room that feels like it's truly yours. There was a rumour circulating the palace that one pharaoh, as a child, ran away for a whole afternoon and hid among the papyrus reeds near the river. He was found hours later, covered in mud, eating a handful of lotus seeds. No one punished him. The priest said it was a divine test. The nursemaid said it was a migraine waiting to happen. Historians still argue whether that Pharaoh was Akhenaten, the heretic king who would later upend all of Egypt's religious traditions. But whether true or not, the story gets passed around in whispers, as a rare moment when even a god-king was just a curious child. You grow up fast in this world, faster than you should. Before you're even allowed to climb trees without supervision, you're leading a ceremony at Karnak. You raise your arms and chant in ancient syllables you barely understand, while the crowd below cries out your name as if it belongs to the stars. Your hands are small on the gold staff. The crown is still too big. The sun is hot, and you wonder, not for the first time, whether any of this was ever meant for you, or if you're just wearing someone else's story. By now you've mastered the art of divine indifference, or at least you've figured out how to look impressively bored while someone reads a 10-minute hymn about your greatness. But there's one thing that always breaks through your royal poker face. Food. Because being pharaoh means being a living god, and gods must be well fits ideally by other people while lying on embroidered cushions. You don't eat alone, ever. Meals are performances, and you're the main act. Today's breakfast starts with dates soaked in palm wine, a round of warm barley bread, and honeycomb arranged into a perfect little square by someone who definitely has back problems from crouching too much. The bread is dense. Really dense. Imagine chewing through your own sandals. Just sweeter. There's roasted goose, too, spiced with coriander and nutmeg, a gift from a local governor trying to win favour. You pick at it politely, knowing full well someone in the palace kitchen had to hand-fit that goose figs for 2 weeks just to make it taste right. And you still have 3 more meals today, minimum. Still, the food isn't always divine. Some of it is, well, old. Like, was this already here when Ramses V was a toddler? Old. Grain storage isn't exactly airtight in the desert, and while dried fish can survive a small apocalypse, it doesn't mean it should. Your palace staff spends hours scrubbing mould off of figs and convincing you that the grey stuff is just how it looks in Thebes. You're offered lotus wine by mid-morning, technically medicinal, but also sort of the ancient Egyptian equivalent of saying, let's take the edge off. You sip, and it tastes like fermented perfume. Not unpleasant, just surprising. You're told it clears the senses. You're pretty sure it just makes the floor swirl slightly. Lunch arrives with more pageantry. Ox meat roasted with garlic and cumin, chickpeas mashed into something delightfully sticky, and pomegranate seeds on everything. Every dish is a love letter to your taste buds, until someone mutters about the food taster not showing up this morning. And suddenly yes, the food taster. An unfortunate soul whose full-time job is to eat before you do, just in case someone slipped a little arsenic into the olives. You try not to get attached to them. Too many disappear without explanation. One morning there's a cheerful young man with freckles. The next you're offered wine by a new girl with eyebrows that don't quite trust you. Historians still argue whether poison was a frequent royal threat or just paranoia with a side of tradition. But considering how many court members ended up mysteriously unwell after official banquets, you're not taking chances. And speaking of dangerous food, the figs. Oh, the figs. Swish, squishy, and always suspicious. There's an old tale that a pharaoh, no one dares name, which was brought down by a single stuffed fig, filled not with almonds, but powdered hemlock. Or maybe it was ground scorpion, depends who's telling it. You don't eat figs anymore. Just in case. But it's not all doom and digestive drama. There are delicacies too. Dates preserved in honey. Fresh melons so cold from the underground storerooms they make your teeth ache. Bread shaped like gods, with tiny ankh imprints baked into the crust. And once, on the Feast of Opet, you were given a loaf of bread the size of your torso. The scribe said it was an offering. He used it as a pillow. Your servants hover as you chew. One fans you, another refills your wine before the cup's even half empty. You've learned not to thank them. Not out of arrogance, but because it confuses the hierarchy. Gods don't say thanks, they just exist. Still, behind the feasting is something a bit more sinister. Everything you eat, every dish, every drop, is a ritual. You are not nourished, you are maintained, preserved, kept alive like a living relic. The palace cook even follows a special scroll of divine dietary protocol, which includes rules about not combining lentils and garlic, because they disrupt the balance of divine digestion. You're also forbidden from certain foods during festival days. No onions during the festival of Bastet, no garlic near offerings, no beer before sundown on ritual days, even though you are the sun, technically. It's all carefully recorded. You've got your own culinary scribe. The poor guy's entire job is writing things like, His Majesty preferred the honey-glazed perch today, but showed divine distaste for the pickled radish. There's even a seasonal detox regimen. Yes, Pharaohs detoxed. It involved eating mostly melon seeds and drinking a laxative made from ground acacia bark. 3 days. No real food, just bitter soup and self-loathing. The priests call it purification of the inner lotus. You call it revenge of the intestines. By evening, you're tired of chewing. But there's one more meal. Supper with the high priests. They want to discuss temple renovations. You want to sleep, but protocol demands you sit upright on your golden stool, eating roasted duck while nodding at scroll diagrams. One priest tells a story between bites about a previous pharaoh who was so addicted to honey cakes that he commissioned a bakery staffed entirely by dwarfs because he believed smaller hands made better pastry. You want to laugh, but the duck's too dry. Sometimes you dream of eating alone, in silence. Just you and a clay bowl of lentils with nobody watching. but even dreams have courtiers in them now. Before bed, you're offered one last treat, a sweet made from dates, nuts, and black pepper. You chew slowly, savouring it, hoping it'll help you sleep. The stars above the palace shine cold and distant. Your belly is full, but your thoughts are louder than your appetite. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. You're still chewing, or at least it feels that way. Somewhere between the ceremonial duck and second honeyed date of the evening, you remembered something important, something only pharaohs truly understand. You're going to die. Not soon, hopefully, but eventually. And in ancient Egypt, that's not just an unfortunate reality, it's an architectural emergency. Because as pharaoh, you don't just need a tomb, you need the tomb. One that says, I ruled the two lands, tamed the gods, and also had a very strong opinion about limestone. The process begins the moment you take the throne, or even earlier if your family's particularly ambitious. Before you can spell eternity, some guy in a gold-trimmed robe is unrolling blueprints for a mortuary temple. Do you want a sun court with that? He asks, like this is a spa package and not your final resting place. At first it feels abstract. You're barely old enough to ride a chariot and people are already carving places for your spleen jars. But death isn't morbid here. It's a whole industry. Builders, artists, priests, astronomers. They're all on Team Death, working round the clock to craft your path to the afterlife. Tomb construction isn't a private affair either. The workers live in a walled village with their own bread ovens, beer quotas, and gossip mills. They chisel your name hundreds of times a day, curse it under their breath when their tools snap, and debate whether your nose looks better in profile or full frontal relief. Historians still argue whether these workers were slaves, artisans, or somewhere in between. The truth probably depends on the dynasty, the ruler, and how well you fed your workforce. Some left behind graffiti that reads more like fed-up Yelp reviews than holy inscriptions. This tomb is for the pharaoh, but the work is killing me. Design choices are endless. Do you want your burial chamber aligned with Orion's belt? Should the ceiling be painted with stars, or just plain sandstone chic? And what about traps? Because yes, you can have traps. False doors, hidden rooms, cursed warnings in red ink. If someone breaks in to loot your eternal peace, you want them second-guessing every step. And let's talk mummification. It's not exactly a sleepover. First, they remove your internal organs through a process involving hooks and a lot of swearing from the embalmers. Your liver, lungs, the brain, that gets tossed. Ancient Egyptians thought it was just skull filler. Everything important, they believed, lived in the heart. Which is awkward if you were more of a thinker than a feeler. Next, your body gets packed with natron, a magical mix of salt and baking soda. Basically, you become a human jerky stick for 70 days. 70. No exceptions. The priests chant, the oils flow, and your toenails get painted for eternity. There's a whole ritual where someone literally opens your mouth with a tool shaped like a tiny fishhook so you can speak in the afterlife. You, of course, won't experience any of this firsthand unless you come back as a ghost and micromanaged, which, according to several scrolls, is totally possible. Just don't forget to haunt responsibly. Your tomb must also include a Book of the Dead. Not an actual book, more like a VIP guide to the afterlife. It's full of spells, passwords, and cheat codes for navigating the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. You'll have to pass through fire lakes, demon crocodiles, and at least one soul-devouring monster with the body of a lion and the face of don't even try. One of the most important rituals involves your heart being weighed against a feather, the feather of Mamut. If your heart is lighter, you pass. If not, you're lunch for the aforementioned monster, Amit. So yeah, no pressure. Back at the palace, the royal scribes are already planning your funerary texts. You're not even sneezing yet, but they're writing things like, His Majesty shined like Ra in his divine youth. You peek over their shoulder and suggest, Can we add that I was very good at board games? They smile and pretend to write it down. They won't. There's an entire team dedicated to making statues of you for the tomb. They range from stoic to wildly flattering. One sculptor makes your ears look larger. You ask why. He says, so the gods can whisper wisdom more clearly. You wonder if that's true, or if he's just bad at ears. Sometimes you visit the construction site. It's far from the palace, past the edge of the Green Nile Valley and into the hills. The air here smells like dust and ambition. Workers bow as you pass, holding their chisels like scepters. You wave and try not to trip on a limestone block labelled Future Antechamber. You sit in the shade and watch them carve your name again and again and again. The sun bakes everything golden. The wind tugs at your robe. You realize this is what immortality looks like. Not fire and lightning, just repetition, just stone. There was a fringe theory whispered among tomb builders that one pharaoh had a secret chamber built beneath his tomb. A false tomb, designed to fool both robbers and the gods. No one's found it. Yet. You return to the palace with dust in your sandals and a headache from all the planning. Your scribe greets you at the door with another scroll of recommended burial hymns. You wave him away and fall into bed. Someday, your heart will be weighed. Your name will echo down painted corridors. But tonight, you just want a cold drink and silence. And maybe, just maybe, no one asking how you'd like your funerary mask to smile. You rise again before dawn, as always, not because the sun commands you, but because the priests do. And let's be honest, they are louder than the sun. This morning, they want you in the sanctuary. Again, the air is already thick with incense, swirled into ribbons by attendants swatting giant fans made of ostrich feathers. You walk between rows of silent robed men whose heads shine with fresh oil, their expressions calm. Too calm, like the calm before a very polite coup. They smile as you pass, all teeth and calculation. You're the living Horus, the son of Ra, the bridge between worlds. But if the temple had a back door, they'd probably install a divine replacement faster than you could say, false Ankh. See, you were taught from birth that gods made Egypt, and pharaohs kept the world from collapsing. But behind the golden statues and ceremonial dances, there's a different truth. The priests hold the kingdom together, and sometimes they pull the strings tighter than you'd like. The high priest of Amun-Ra, in particular, stands just slightly taller than everyone else. Not physically, just in that way some people take up too much space without moving. He adjusts his leopard-skin sash and gives you that smile again. You smile back, a little tighter. He begins the morning rites. You're handed a sacred scepter shaped like a shepherd's crook. You wave it solemnly, pretending you're herding cosmic sheep. The priest chants something about the Nile rising because of your greatness. You nod, even though you just saw your irrigation minister complaining about drought. The ceremony includes bread. Always bread. You break it and offer it to the gods, who, conveniently, never eat it. So the priests take it later. You're starting to suspect the gods have a gluten intolerance. There's a moment in every ritual where your body is still, your hands raised, and all eyes are on you. The temple falls utterly silent. You feel the weight of your regalia, the sweat trickling down your back, and the invisible strings tightening around your wrists. You are not a boy anymore, not even a king. You're a symbol, a statue that breathes. Afterward, as you step behind the veil, you ask one of the junior priests why Amun-Ra needs 3 separate chants for sunrise. He blinks, then answers, because he's very awake. You nod slowly, make a mental note to prank him later, and keep walking. You head to the House of Life next, a cross between a library, a medical clinic, and the world's most exhausting group project. Here, scribes copy religious texts, astronomers map the sky, and physicians sharpen their obsidian scalpels. Everyone's whispering. Everyone smells like papyrus and ambition. One scribe hands you a tablet, a message from a distant temple. Apparently, a statue of Osiris fell over during a ceremony. Some interpret it as a bad omen. Others say the wind knocked it over. You circle the phrase bad omen and underline it twice. Mostly because it feels relatable. You're escorted to a private chamber for a consultation. That's code for priestly lobbying. Today they want more grain for the temples, more dancers for the moon festival, and a bigger statue of Hathor in the new shrine. You listen, you nod, you sip cold beer from a gold goblet and say, "Let me commune with the gods." That's your new favourite phrase. It means, "Give me a day to think about it," but sounds mysterious enough to stop further questions. You may be young, but you're learning. The priests aren't just religious figures. They're politicians, landowners, architects of both doctrine and debt. The Temple of Amun alone owns vast stretches of farmland, ships on the Nile, even their own granaries. They don't need your permission to be powerful, but they need your face to stay legitimate. Historians still argue whether the priesthood was more powerful than the pharaoh. Some scrolls suggest they influenced major state decisions. Others say the pharaohs used them like puppets. The truth? Probably both, depending on who had better food that week. You walk through a side corridor and pause in front of a hidden mural, a half-finished painting of a younger pharaoh surrounded by stars. No crown, no retinue, just a boy, barefoot in the cosmos. It's haunting. You wonder who painted it. You wonder if they were caught. On your way back to the palace, you pass through the temple courtyard. Pilgrims are laying offerings, flowers, amulets, handmade clay figurines of cats and crocodiles. A child holds out a lotus blossom to you, eyes wide. You kneel and accept it. The high priest doesn't smile this time. Maybe he wanted you to ignore the child. Later that day, you receive a sealed scroll from the temple oracle. It warns of a fracture in the divine balance. You look around. Nothing's broken. You set the scroll on fire, mostly for drama. Your tutor tells you of earlier pharaohs who tried to curb priestly power. One tried to limit temple land rights. Another replaced high priests entirely. Their reigns were brief and unfortunate. You take notes, not because you plan to follow in their footsteps, but because you don't want to. At sunset, the priests return for evening rites. You play your part, your arms lifted, face blank, heart quietly thumping with anxiety and irritation. The gods may watch from above, but down here, the priests are the ones writing your story, and they've got excellent handwriting. You're standing in a temple again, but this time it's different. The air feels cooler, emptier, like something sacred slipped out the back while no one was looking. You glance up at your own statue, and for a moment it seems to be judging you. Or laughing. Hard to say. Its nose is missing. Your nose is missing. Not yours, exactly. The one on your statue. It used to be regal, carved in precise symmetry, a perfect echo of your divine profile. Now it's chipped off, clean, deliberate. The face remains, the posture still commands awe, but that missing nose changes everything. You look wounded, deflated, almost human. And you're not the only one. As you walk through the temple colonnades, you notice more and more statues missing their noses, lips, even eyes. Every god, every past pharaoh, every sacred feline, carefully defaced, one by one. And it's not weather, it's not time, it's personal. Historians still argue whether these mutilations were acts of political revenge, religious purging, or just extremely focused vandalism. One theory suggests that the Egyptians believed a statue could breathe and see in the afterlife, so breaking the nose was a spiritual assassination. No breath, no presence, a tidy sort of execution. Whatever the reason, it's unnerving. You pass a row of sphinxes where every single face is damaged. One has a broken jaw, another is missing its ears. You start to wonder if someone's collecting noses. You briefly picture a jar labelled "Important Royal Snouts," then decide you're too tired to make that a formal investigation. At court, no one wants to talk about it. Your vizier mutters something about sand erosion, which is laughable. Aggressive sandstorms don't chisel away only facial features, and they definitely don't carry hammers. But someone's doing this, quietly, methodically, Probably at night, under the cover of silence and palm shadows. And maybe it's not even about you but your ancestors. A past pharaoh, a rival dynasty, a priest who made one too many enemies and left too many statues behind. There's a stone relief near your private chamber, carved not a century ago, depicting your grandfather smiting enemies under the watchful eye of Ra. Yesterday, he had both eyes. Today, one is gone. Just a hollow circle now, staring into nothing. You run your fingers over the gouge. Fresh, shallow, done with a chisel and haste. You confront the head temple conservator. He insists he's deeply troubled by the defacements. You ask him why the guards haven't caught anyone. He mentions shadows. You ask about increasing watchmen. He nods nervously and then starts talking about divine omens until you leave out of sheer frustration. Later that evening, your scribe shares a fringe story, one that was whispered in the workers' village outside the Valley of the Kings. Supposedly, a sculptor once claimed that he had the power to make a statue too lifelike, that the gods became jealous, and so he began unfinishing his work on purpose, removing noses and eyes to keep the gods from being offended. You ask how long ago this sculptor lived? The scribe says, 2 reigns ago. You ask if he's still alive. The scribe says, that depends on who you believe. You start dreaming about it, walking through endless rows of statues, your own face repeated over and over, each one less complete than the last. In the final dream, your statue opens its mouth and speaks in your voice. They will erase you slowly. Then its nose falls off, and you wake up. The next day, you order a full inspection of every major temple. No one laughs. No one dares. But the priests do grumble. Too many eyes on sacred space. Still, the statues keep breaking. Or rather, being broken. At one temple, your guards catch a man mid-defacement. A painter's apprentice. He says he was fixing the statue, removing flaws the gods could see. When pressed, he changes his story. He says he was told to do it, but he refuses to say by whom. You exile him. A small decision, for now. But the broken faces haunt you. Even your tomb in Prosperoni isn't safe. You visit it in secret, torch in hand, stepping carefully through corridors painted with golden suns and ritual boats. Everything still gleams. But in the main chamber, there's a statue of you, only half finished, trudged out like someone had been interrupted mid-blasphemy. You turn slowly. The air feels colder here, deeper somehow, like breath held too long. You order the entrance sealed until further notice. Back at court, the gossip spreads fast. Some blame foreigners, some blame heretics. A few priests whisper about divine punishment for reforms you haven't even made yet. The Temple of Ptah requests permission to add extra guards. The Temple of Sekhmet just sends a prayer request and a very sharp knife wrapped in silk. You appreciate the gesture. And then you remember. One pharaoh had his statues defaced because he offended the wrong gods. He changed the pantheon, waged war on tradition, tried to make himself the one true focus of worship. You haven't done that. Not yet. But someone, somewhere, is acting like you already have. The next time you walk into the temple, you don't look at the statues. You keep your head high, your eyes ahead, and pretend you don't notice the silence. But in the corners of your vision, you swear you see pieces missing. Small ones. But growing. Tonight, you can't sleep. The air is too still, your linen sheets too crisp, and the silence around your chamber, normally comforting, is now suspiciously quiet. You've developed a new reflex, checking whether your own statue has been tampered with before bed. Welcome to Pharaoh-level insomnia. It's not paranoia if someone is chiseling your face off while you nap. So you rise before dawn, again, and this time you don't head to the temple. You're going somewhere else. Somewhere darker, slipperier, and frankly, a little too warm. The palace's hidden corridors. Yes, they exist. Every royal complex has them. Thin, twisting tunnels behind stone walls, used by messengers, guards, and people who'd rather go unnoticed. which today includes you. Why? Because you've started hearing whispers, literal ones, servants talking behind curtains, court musicians who stop strumming when you walk past. And most curious of all, that the high priest assistant is having very long conversations with your royal astrologer in the wine cellar at night. So you slip into the corridor behind the Hall of Offerings and start your slow, torchlit investigation. The corridor is narrow. You brush against cool stone, duck beneath low arches, pass through the scent of dried fish, warm oil, and something else. Something musky. You aren't alone down here. You freeze, a rustle ahead. Then, footsteps. Bare feet on stone, quick but measured. You duck into an alcove, hold your breath and peek. A figure passes, slender, fast, wearing the pelt of a leopard draped over their shoulder, the signature garment of temple priests. But not just any priest. That's a Sem priest, one of the elite ritual specialists, rarely seen outside funerals or temple purifications. Their job is mostly spiritual, but they're also the ones trusted to oversee embalming, manage secret rites, and sometimes pass messages no one else should hear. Which brings us to the real secret of your palace. Spies. Not foreign agents with cloaks and poisoned scrolls, though they exist too, but internal spies. Temple informants. Sacred gossip channels. People with shaved heads and too much access. Some wear incense like a perfume, others wear leopard-skin robes. You trail the Sem priest at a distance. He wins through the corridor like he owns it, slips through a crack in the wall, and emerges into a chamber lit by a single oil lamp. You creep closer, press your ear to the wall. Voice. 2 of them. He won't change anything yet. But the dreams are happening again. The signs are clear. Even the oracle at Dendera confirmed it. The child pharaoh is unstable. You scowl. You're unstable? You've only set one statue on fire, and that was for dramatic effect. A third voice now, older, raspier. We need eyes in the northern storerooms, and ears near the vizier. If the boy starts speaking of Aten, the name hangs in the air like thick incense. Aten, the sun disk, a forbidden subject. You step back, heart pounding. Now it makes sense. The temple is watching you, not for what you've done, but for what they think you might do. They are trying to catch a heresy before it even begins. You slip away before they see you, back through the corridor, through a disused wardrobe, and finally into your own bedchamber. Your hair smells like torch smoke and lemon oil. You lie awake, eyes on the ceiling. So many secrets in this palace. And the worst part? You're not even sure you know what you're planning yet. The next day, you call an audience with your food steward. You ask about wine shipments casually. You watch his eyebrows twitch. Then you dismiss him and call your sandal bearer. Ask where he was the night before last. He stutters, fumbles, mentions a sore foot. Suspicious. Who gets a sore foot doing that job? You start keeping track. Not names, behaviours. Who walks slower when the priests enter the room? Who starts prayers late? Who never looks you in the eye? It's a game now. Palace clue with eyeliner and scrolls instead of lead pipes and candlesticks. Your nursemaid catches you whispering to a statue and asks if you're feeling well. You smile and say, just reminding Horus who's in charge. You don't sleep that night either. At court, you begin issuing harmless decrees, testing the waters, a slight reduction in temple grain, a limit on incense purchases, nothing dramatic, just subtle shifts. The high priest smiles too much when you announce them. You don't trust it. Then a message arrives, a scroll with no sender. It reads, simply, even the sun casts shadows. You burn it. Your paranoia grows a nose of its own. One day, while inspecting a newly painted relief, you notice that the face of the god is starting to look a lot like your vizier. You say nothing. You just order it repainted. with extra eyebrow. And always, the leopard-skin figures linger at the edge of your vision, in the court, in the temple, in your dreams. One night, you wake to the sound of breathing in your chamber, but find no one, except your cat, who looks very pleased with itself. There's a fringe theory, rarely spoken aloud, that Sem priests were trained not just in rituals, but in psychology, early manipulators of emotion, masters of rumour. They didn't just conduct funerals, they orchestrated outcomes. You believe it now. But two can play the subtle game. You start whispering your own rumours. Quiet ones. That the high priest's wine cellar is running dry. That your divine dreams have returned. That you've seen visions of a temple collapsing under too much incense. You say it all with a smile. And watch. Because maybe you are unstable. But maybe that's exactly what they should be afraid of. You're standing in the palace garden, staring at the sun. Not metaphorically, literally. It hangs above the palms like a molten coin, blinding, burning, ancient, and for some reason today, it looks different. Like it's watching you back. Like it's waiting. You don't blink. Because somewhere deep in your golden gut, where dreams and instinct swirl, you know something's about to change. It starts small. You request a new mural in your private chamber. The sun, not as Ra in falcon form, but as a radiant disk, arms reaching down, hands cradling ankhs like gifts. The artist hesitates. "Isn't that the Arton?" he asks, low and cautious. You say nothing, just gesture for him to keep painting. He does. Carefully. The next day, you order your personal altar realigned to face due east. Then you ask the priests to conduct morning prayers outdoors. "Let the gods see our devotion," you explain. They nod, smile, but the high priest's jaw tightens a hair. You notice. He knows. You're not the first pharaoh to fall for the sun. Centuries ago, one of your most infamous ancestors, Amenhotep IV, declared Aten, the sun disk, as the one true god. He changed his name to Akhenaten, moved the capital, waged holy war against the temples, rewrote the theology of 1,000 years with nothing but conviction and really strong eyeliner. Historians still argue whether he was a visionary or a madman, a religious genius or a megalomaniac with too much free time. But what everyone agrees on, he broke the system, and the system broke him right back. Which makes your recent behaviour noticeable. One afternoon, during a temple procession, you deviate from the ritual path. Just one step, a simple drift toward the sunlit side of the courtyard. But the priests freeze. One drops his incense burner. You keep walking, pretending not to see them clutch their necklaces tighter. In your private court, you begin discussing light. A lot. You praise clarity, transparency, truth. You use the word radiance 5 times in one meeting about barley storage. Your advisors squirm like they're being slowly roasted. One suggests you take a rest, maybe a boat trip to cool your divine mind. You thank him sweetly and ask if he'd prefer you sail into the sun instead. He does not respond. Then comes the painting. You commission a massive wall mural in the Hall of Offerings. It's bold, unorthodox, a golden sun disk beaming rays that end in hands, each offering ankhs to you. Not Ra, not Horus, you. The temple is scandalized. A high priest faints. You step over him politely. You say it's a celebration of divine light. They say it's a dangerous echo. They start calling you the Shining One in whispers. You pretend not to hear, but deep down you like it. One evening, you study the sky from your balcony. The sun slips below the horizon, a slow golden death. You whisper to yourself, "Tomorrow it will rise for me." Your cat blinks, unimpressed. More changes come quickly. You request that offerings be made to the Aten alongside the traditional gods. Not a replacement, just a little side devotion. The priests are livid. Heretical fusion, one mutters. You smile and offer him a fruit basket. Some of the younger scribes begin to mimic your phrases. May Aten's light reveal your truth, they say to each other. A guard greets you by oathing his arms, palms open to the sky. You don't correct him. The temples begin to panic. You receive a scroll from the high priest. You respond with a poem. The sun is not jealous of the stars. The shadow flees not from fear, but awe. I do not worship the sun. I am its breath. You don't sign it. You don't need to. One evening, your personal astrologer appears uninvited in your chamber. He's sweating, not from heat. He always sweats when he's nervous. He warns you that your chart shows unprecedented solar influence. You nod slowly and say, as it should. He nods back, equally slow, and then bolts out of the room. Soon, changes ripple out across the palace. The servants begin offering greetings at dawn. They sing your name in rhythm with the rising sun. Even the palace cat spends more time in the window. But not everyone is amused. The priests close ranks. The incense gets thicker. The rites grow longer, like they're trying to smother your sunlight with smoke. You let them. For now. Your dreams grow stranger. You walk barefoot through sand that burns and heals you at once. The sky weeps gold. Statues bow as you pass. A voice whispers, "He dared. Will you?" You wake with tears in your eyes and sand in your sheets. Probably the cat's fault. And then the scroll arrives. Anonymous, elegant, short. Even Akhenaten fell. How brightly will you burn? You laugh. A quiet, tired laugh. Not because you're afraid, but because they finally said it. They know. They all know now. The priests, the court, the servants, the scribes. They know you've turned toward the Aten, and they are terrified. You've done nothing official, no proclamations, no temples closed. But already they whisper your name with a question mark at the end. Because even the smallest shift in worship, the tiniest turn of the head, can tilt the entire cosmos. And they feel it. The sun rises the next morning, golden and vast. And you're already waiting, eyes open, arms raised, not praying, receiving. The sun's rays crawl across your chamber floor like golden fingers. You don't move. You just lie there, eyes half closed, letting the warmth pool in your collarbones. There's a calm in you now, not peace, exactly, more like stillness before something important. You've made no official changes, but the palace already buzzes with tension. You can feel it, in the way people bow a little too low, speak a little too softly, offer one too many compliments about your radiant presence. They're afraid, and honestly, you're getting used to it. But what really rattles them is that you seem calm. Pharaohs before you raged, schemed, crumbled. You're simply enjoying the sunshine. Still, it's time to step outside. You leave your bed and slip into your gold-trimmed robes, letting the fabric catch the light. You don't need a crown today. Your aura is doing all the work. Today, you'll walk among the gods. And no, not Ra, not Osiris, not the ever-Abusi Anubis with his jackal grin. You're visiting the weirder ones, the oddballs of the pantheon. Because for every falcon-headed sky lord and vulture-winged mother goddess, Egypt also gave birth to some deities that, well, let's just say they didn't make it into the mainstream merchandise. First, there's Bees, the squat, bandy-legged god of protection, childbirth, and somehow party vibes. He's got the face of an angry dwarf and the posture of someone who just discovered bad news about lunch. But despite his gremlin-like appearance, people love him. They paint his image on beds, wear amulets of him, even carve his face into makeup jars. Why? Because Bees scares away evil spirits, and also because he's kind of adorable in a nightmare way. Bees is everywhere in the palace, grinning from wall tiles, etched into mirror handles. One of your nursemaids swore he danced in the corner of your nursery to keep the demons away. You didn't see it, but you believed her. Mostly because she had no reason to lie, and also because you were 3 and didn't want to make bees mad. Next is Tuweret, the goddess of childbirth and fertility. She's got the body of a hippo, the back of a crocodile, and the chest. And then there's Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and writing. You've always liked him. Part bird, part scribe, all judgmental intellect. He's the god who sits beside your soul during the weighing of the heart ceremony, ready to take notes on how embarrassing your life choices were. Thoth is the original overachiever. Legend says he invented writing, created the calendar, and once convinced the moon to lend light to the sun. Historians still argue whether Thoth was more popular among priests or scribes, but what's certain is that his temples were filled with scrolls, stars, and people who read way too much. You pay him silent respect as you pass his shrine. After all, you owe your entire bureaucratic nightmare to his divine legacy. Thanks, Thoth. But if you really want to get weird, let's talk about Set, god of chaos, storms, deserts, and possibly aardvarks. No one's quite sure what animal Set's head is supposed to be. It's got a square snout, tall ears, and the vibe of something that eats dreams and ruins parties. Set is the eternal rival of Osiris, the ultimate heel-turn sibling. He chopped his brother into pieces, scattered them across the Nile, and claimed the throne, which, even by royal standards, is overkill. Yet, despite being the poster god for betrayal, Set still had his followers, especially among soldiers and frontier folk. You even have a Set pendant somewhere in your jewellery box, though you mostly keep it around for emergencies. You know, just in case things get chaotic. A lesser-known deity catches your attention next. Babid, a bloodthirsty baboon god, who, according to temple lore, devoured the souls of the wicked, and was especially concerned with, let's call it, afterlife virility. Yes, the ancient Egyptians even had a monkey god of manliness. The mural of Babi you stumble across is alarmingly detailed. You raise an eyebrow. The artist clearly enjoyed his work. You continue your walk, moving deeper into the sacred halls, where statues stand in silent rows. You pass Khnum, the ram-headed god who supposedly crafted humans on a potter's wheel. You've always wondered whether he gave you extra polish or was distracted that day. You pause in front of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic balance. She's serene, elegant, and wears a single ostrich feather in her headdress. That feather? It's the one your heart will be weighed against in the afterlife. If your soul is heavier, it gets devoured. No pressure. You find comfort in Ma'at. Out of all the gods, she's the one you trust most. Maybe because she doesn't promise glory, or vengeance, or just balance. And maybe because, lately, your life feels dangerously off-kilter. You're halfway through the Hall of Lesser Gods when you spot something unusual. A shrine to Meretzesha, the cobra-headed goddess of the Theban necropolis. Protector of tombs, punisher of gravy lobbers. She's rare, almost forgotten, but she watches from the shadows, coiled in stone, waiting. You kneel, just slightly, and offer her a whisper. Guard what's mine. You don't know if she hears. You hope she does. A scholar once told you that Egypt had over 2,000 gods, most of them local, specific, deeply personal. They ruled not over galaxies but over gardens, pregnancies, dreams, and bees. You like that. You like knowing the divine isn't just thunder and pyramids. It's baboons, cats, and hippos too. Because in a world of big, loud gods, sometimes the strange ones are the ones who keep the darkness away. The sun begins to set. You rise and return to your chambers. The walk back is quiet, sacred, heavy with golden dust. You feel seen, not just by your guards and servants, but by the gods themselves. Even the weird ones. Especially the weird ones. The sun has barely crested the horizon, but already you're on a boat. Not a warship, not a royal barge. just a sleek, shallow craft gliding across the Nile like a gold-trimmed dragonfly. The water is glass. The oars cut silently, and the city of Thebes stretches behind you, shrinking into shadow. You're headed toward a question. Specifically, the one that's been whispered through classrooms, scrolls, and coffee-fueled archaeological debates for centuries. Were the pyramids really built as tombs? You're the pharaoh. You're supposed to know. But the truth? You're not sure anymore. The official story is carved in temple walls and repeated in prayers. Your ancestors, the old kings of the Old Kingdom, built pyramids to house their divine bodies in death. A cosmic launch pad. A beacon for the soul to climb skyward. But here's the weird thing. You've been to the pyramids, the great ones, Giza, Saqqara, Madum, and despite all their majesty, they feel empty. Not just physically, though that's also true, but emotionally, spiritually, like they're theatres with no actors, scripts with no cast. One pyramid you visited had nothing but a stone sarcophagus in a cold, echoing chamber. No mummy, no canopic jars, not even a scrap of linen, just echoes. And sure, tomb robbers are a thing. You know that. You've had to double the guards at your own future burial site after someone tried to dig into the antechamber last week. But these pyramids? These weren't just robbed. They feel like they were never used. Historians still argue whether these monuments were ever intended to be graves. Some believe they were symbolic, earthly replicas of the primordial mound from which creation sprang. Others claim they were power flexes, mega billboards saying, "My God King is taller than your God King." There's even a fringe theory among some temple scribes that the pyramids were spiritual engine machines for manipulating cosmic energy. You heard that one from a sleep-deprived astronomer who'd been staring at star chuts too long. You laughed at the time. Now, you're not laughing quite as hard. You arrive at the Valley Temple near Giza. The air is dry, humming with heat, though it's barely mid-morning. The priests here are old-school turbans stiff with starch, attitudes stiffer. They don't like questions. They prefer answers, even bad ones. But you're not in a diplomatic mood today. Who was buried in the Great Pyramid, you ask, straight-faced? They say Khufu, automatically like schoolboys reciting homework. You nod. And where is he now? Awkward silence. You walk through the inner passages. The walls are blank. No decoration, no hymns, no spells, no "Here lies the divine flesh of the Falcon King." Just cold granite and the sound of your own sandals. It's unsettling. Back in Thebes, your scribes prepare a royal statement about your upcoming tomb. They want you to include pyramid motifs, traditional stuff, nothing revolutionary. You delay the meeting. Because, let's be real, by your time, pyramids are old, outdated. The cool kids are buried in rock-cut tombs now, hidden, mysterious, filled with traps and glittery secrets. You're expected to follow suit. But still, the question lingers. Why did they stop building pyramids? One theory? Too expensive, too obvious, too much limestone, not enough secrecy. But another theory haunts you more. Maybe the pyramids stopped working. Maybe whatever cosmic plug they once connected to went dark. You ask your court astronomer if the stars still align with the pyramid shafts. He checks. They do. Sort of. But precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, has thrown things off a bit. Maybe that matters. Maybe not. You stare at a model of the Giza complex one night in your chamber. It's beautiful, precise, but something about it feels like a decoy, like it's meant to distract you. So you ask the stonecutters what they think, the ones building your own tomb. Covered in dust, drinking lukewarm beer, these men have no time for philosophy. One shrugs and says, "A big pile of rocks doesn't protect a king, fear does." Then he belches. You respect that answer more than most priestly scrolls. There's a rumour floating through the palace that one of the old tomb designers from the Middle Kingdom discovered a secret under the step pyramid. A passage leading to something not meant to be opened. No one's confirmed it, but the story keeps circulating. Another rumour claims the first pyramid wasn't a tomb at all, but a monument built after death. A giant cenotaph, a marker for something long gone. Or someone, depending who you ask. You keep asking. Some nights, you dream of stairs made of light, ascending forever. You climb barefoot, robes fluttering, and at the top, you start sketching your own burial chamber layout. You add false doors, hidden rooms, shafts leading nowhere. Not for looters. For misdirection. In case the gods are watching and need to be confused. One night, you ask your scribe, "If I was never found, would I still be remembered?" He doesn't answer. And that's the question, really. What is a tomb supposed to do? Preserve your body? Carry your soul? Protect your name? Or maybe, just maybe, distract the world long enough for your spirit to escape unnoticed? So you keep the pyramid talk quiet. You don't build one, but you visit them in secret. You walk their silent corridors, run your hand over the worn stone, listen to the hush between heartbeats. And you wonder, who were they really for? It's late afternoon in the palace courtyard. The shadows stretch long and sharp like obsidian blades across the floor. You're sitting on a polished bench of pink granite, admiring the way the light hits your reflection in the still water of a ceremonial pool. And wow, you look great. The eyeliner is flawless. Dark, dramatic, elongated in that classic divine falcon eye curve. You've got more contouring than a sandstone cliff. Your skin is golden. Your neckpiece shimmers with turquoise, lapis, and just a hint of smugness. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The eyeliner might be slowly killing you. It's called coal, and yes, it's gorgeous, but the stuff is made from crushed galena lead sulfide. Not the friendliest of minerals. Your physicians insist it works off eye infections and evil spirits. Which is true, but historians now believe the protective magic might have come with a generous side order of lead poisoning. Still, what are you supposed to do? Rule Egypt with bare eyelids? Please. Coal is not just makeup, it's identity. It marks you as elite, divine, and perpetually ready to strike a pose. Even the gods wear it. Horus, eyeliner. Isis, elaborately in midnight and sharp enough to file scrolls. Even your generals wear it during parades, and don't think for a second it's just for looks. Coal reduces sun glare, deters flies, and supposedly protects your vision in the harsh desert light. Think of it as ancient Ray-Bans, but with better branding. Still, when your eyelids start twitching, you get a little nervous. You summon your royal physician. He arrives smelling like honey and panic. You ask him to analyze your cosmetics. He nods. He disappears. He comes back the next morning with a polite scrawl that says, essentially, "It's fine." Probably. You glare at him through your beautifully lined but slightly twitchy eyes. Then there's the weird part. Your enemies wear Kalor too. Everyone does. Even people about to be executed are given a little dab, just in case they want to look fabulous in the afterlife. It's ritual. It's spiritual. It's fashion. And possibly, it's lethal. One day, you catch your reflection during a temple procession. Your coal looks different. Thicker. Glossier. You confront your cosmetic scribe. Yes, that's a job. And he explains that they've been experimenting with new formulas. A touch of malachite, a hint of charcoal, and something from a priest's private recipe. He says. You freeze. You ask, which priest? He hesitates. Then he says the name of the assistant to the high priest of Amun. Of course. You order a full inspection of your cosmetic storeroom. Half the jars are unmarked. One has a serpent etched into the lid. Another is filled with a grey paste that smells like burnt copper. You hand it to your food taster. He winces after one sniff and says, "I don't think this is for eyelids or humans." You burn half the collection. From then on, you insist on mixing your own coal, just to be safe. It becomes a meditative process, grinding galanais on a flat slab, humming a protection chant under your breath. 1 part ritual, 1 part rebellion. You even invent your own blend. Add crushed chrysocolla for colour, a drop of sacred Nile water for mysticism, and just a pinch of, well, you don't say. It's your secret now. Your face, your formula. But the paranoia doesn't stop. You start inspecting other people's eyeliner. Closely. Too closely. At one council meeting, you stare at your vizier's face so long he drops a scroll out of nervousness. You pretend not to notice. One of your bodyguards starts developing a rash. Another has constant nosebleeds. You switch the palace lamps to scented oil. Supposedly it neutralizes toxic vapors. Or it just smells nice. Either way, worth it. There's a fringe theory among your scribes that the Pharaohs' beauty rituals were never just about divine presentation. Some believe the gods left specific recipes for protective formulas in temple scrolls. Magic hidden in makeup. A smear of coal here, a line there, and suddenly you're shielded from curses, spies, or bad dreams. You like that idea. You decide it's true. That way the eyeliner's not poisoning you, it's protecting you. Side effects be damned. Then the real twist. A minor priest from Memphis arrives with a gift. A scroll detailing an alternative cosmetic blend using plant ash, red ochre, and dried fig resin. All natural. Smells like fresh earth and oranges. Harmless. Effective. You try it once. It flakes. Immediately. You send the priest away. Politely. With a note that reads, "The gods do not blink." So, the ritual continues. Every morning, you sit before your polished bronze mirror, a servant holding your cosmetic kit like sacred relics. You apply the kohl slowly, deliberately. First the lower line, then the top. A flick upward, a steady breath. You stare at yourself. You don't just look powerful. You look untouchable. And that's the point. Because in this palace, in this desert, power isn't just about armies or scrolls. It's about presence. And your eyes, rimmed in mystery and minerals, tell a story no one dares interrupt. Besides, if the kohl is slowly killing you, at least you'll die with the sharpest winged eyeliner in Egyptian history. You're walking through the royal menagerie again. The scent hits you first. Warm hay, sweet rot, and something unmistakably feline. Somewhere nearby, a baboon is shrieking, a falcon flaps overhead, and a crocodile in a shallow pool gives you the kind of side-eye only a creature older than sin can manage. This is not just a collection of animals. This is the Pharaoh's personal zoo/sacred order/weird family extension. And everyone here has their place. Some are pets. Some are divine symbols. A few, you suspect, are spies. Your cat, naturally, walks beside you like she owns the sand. She's long, lean, with golden fur, and a gaze that could shame the sun. You call her Nibet, which means lady. She doesn't respond to it, because cats are not servants. They're shareholders. In Egypt, animals aren't just background noise. They're honoured, worshipped, sometimes even feared. Each one represents a god, a power, or a protective force. And yours are a little extra. You pause in front of the baboon enclosure. There's one perched on a high stone ledge, staring at you like he's seen your scrolls. This is no ordinary primate. He's a sacred baboon of Thoth, god of wisdom. His name is Akem. He once threw papyrus at your vizier. You gave him a melon. Some scholars think baboons were trained to assist in rituals. Others believe they were just left to do their thing and praised when they didn't attack anyone. Either way, they get treated better than some court officials. Then there's the ibis, delicate, slender, and always judging. You have 6 of them. They walk in formation. One once pecked a priest's sandal during a ceremony. You promoted it. A little further down you find your crocodile. Yes, your crocodile. His name is Shedeti, and he's allegedly a living incarnation of Sabit, the god of strength and fertility. He eats fish from a golden tray and hasn't blinked since last spring. You respect his vibe. There's a story, possibly exaggerated, of a previous pharaoh who kept a crocodile in his bathing chamber to discourage assassination attempts. You like to imagine the would-be killer stepping through the steam, dagger raised, and stopping cold at the sight of a lazy reptile smirking in the soap. But pets are more than protection here. They're family, and in your case, they're part of your afterlife plan. Because yes, you're going to be buried with them. Or, more accurately, they're going to be buried with you. Mummified. Lovingly. Maybe a little excessively. Historians often raise an eyebrow at the sheer volume of animal mummies in ancient Egypt. Cats, birds, bulls, monkeys, crocodiles, even scarab beetles, delicately wrapped and tucked in golden coffins. The numbers are wild. One tomb near Saqqara held over 4 million mummified ibises. 4 million. You're not trying to break any records, but still, you've made plans. Nibet the cat will receive a miniature sarcophagus shaped like Bastet, her goddess mother. Shedeti the crocodile will be embalmed by the temple of Sobek and placed in a side chamber of your tomb with his own offering table. Akem the baboon? Well, you haven't decided yet. He bit the court scribe last week. Might just leave him a melon and see how the gods feel. You once asked your embalmer how it works, the animal mummification process. He explained it in detail you didn't ask for. Apparently it involves incense, resin, linen, and a lot of very patient wrapping. The goal isn't just preservation, it's perfection. The gods don't want you showing up in the afterlife with a half-mummified monkey. It's a bad look. There's even a fringe belief that some animal mummies were stand-in ritual proxies for offerings people couldn't afford, like spiritual IOUs. One cat mummy you saw in a temple had been so thoroughly wrapped it could have been a loaf of bread for all anyone knew. The gods, allegedly, appreciated the gesture. You pass by the falcon roost. The birds are calm today. One lifts its head as you approach. Horus incarnate, they say. Sky god in feathers. You offer a piece of raw quail. It accepts with dignity, then flies away with what feels like judgment. And then, the monkey. He's new. Small, dark, perched on the shoulder of a priest who claims it was a gift from a distant land across the sea. It clutches a painted amulet in one paw and eyes your golden sandals like they owe him money. You reach out. He takes your finger gently, then promptly throws the amulet at your feet and leaps onto the roof. You like him immediately. There's something humbling about these creatures. They don't bow, they don't flatter, they don't pretend you're a god. Your cat doesn't care if you're king of the world, she just wants her dinner. The monkey wants chaos, the baboon wants your figs, the falcon wants silence, the crocodile wants nothing from you at all, which is somehow worse. You return to your chambers at sunset, dust on your robe and cat hair on your sash. Your animal companions follow, or ignore you, as they please. Before bed, you speak to your embalmers again. You revise your funerary plan slightly. You want more space in the tomb. Not for treasure. Or friends. You dream of boats again. But not the golden kind that glide on the Nile, flanked by musicians and papyrus flowers. No, this one sails through ink dark, slow and endless. You're in it, lying down, arms crossed, wrapped in linen, surrounded by silence. A black river, stars overhead. No banks, no breeze, just eternity. And the worst part? The paperwork hasn't even started yet. Because in Egypt, death is not the end. It's just administration. Let's start with the basics. When you die, and you will die, despite the crocodile oil, the imported figs, and the priest who swears your chart says immortal-ish. You don't just close your eyes and drift off. You go to court. Welcome to the Hall of Two Truths, the ultimate celestial DMV. Your soul gets escorted there by Anubis, jackal-headed and unnervingly efficient. He's silent, cool, smells like cedarwood and very strong opinions. He leads you into the hall, where 42 divine judges wait. Yes, 42. One for every province, every sin, every possible thing you could have done wrong. They start asking questions, fast, weird ones. Did you steal bread? Did you raise your voice? Did you kill a sacred goose? You answer no to all of them, obviously, even if you're lying. Especially if you're lying. Meanwhile, your heart is placed on a scale. On the other side, a single feather. That's Mart truth, balance, cosmic order, and the one thing you've been pretending to care about your whole life. If your heart is heavier than the feather, you fail. No reincarnation, no ghostly afterlife, no nothing. Just a metal monster, with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the back end of a hippo, who devours your soul like a soggy crouton. Instant deletion. You know all this because it's been read to you, repeatedly, in temple schools, during festivals, carved into tomb walls. It's called the Book of the Dead, though, fun fact, Egyptians called it the Book of Coming Forth by Day, which sounds a lot more optimistic and also vaguely like a seasonal menu. And the book isn't short. It's a full-on guide, filled with spells, chants, instructions, and at least 4 different ways to convince the gods that you were basically good, give or take a pyramid. You've commissioned your own copy, naturally. Custom illustrations, premium ink, personalized margins. Your favorite part is Spell 125, the famous heart-weighing scene. In your version, you look extremely calm, and the gods are all slightly impressed. But even before the scales, there's logistics. Your burial must be perfect. If a single ritual is skipped, a single name mispronounced, your soul might get lost. Or worse, stuck, wandering, whining, doomed to haunt your own tomb like a very well-dressed mosquito. So, everything must be done exactly right. That means 4 canopic jars for your organs, a wooden heart scarab placed carefully on your chest, amulets between every layer of linen, a priest with a jackal mask saying the correct 37 words while waving incense like a moody backup dancer. You've reviewed your burial plan with the high priest. Twice. You've added more amulets. You've upgraded your heart scarab to obsidian. You even requested your name be carved on every wall. Just in case. Because here's the thing. Name equals survival. If your name is remembered, you continue. If it's lost, you vanish. Forever. There's a fringe theory whispered in the embalming chambers that some pharaohs weren't just buried with guards. They were buried with professional mourners, trained to cry dramatically and talk about your accomplishments loudly so the gods wouldn't miss the memo. You like that idea. You've already chosen your mourner team. 3 singers, 1 poet, and a guy with a very loud voice and no filter. His job is to yell things like, "This man was so brave he once stared down a leopard for fun." Your tomb also includes a false door, a stone slab carved to look like an entrance. It's not functional, it's symbolic. It allows your car, your life force, to pass between worlds. Every pharaoh has one, even the ones who weren't that interesting. And then there's the food. Because yes, you'll need snacks in the afterlife. Wine jars, loaves of bread, dried figs, honey, meat stews sealed in clay pots. The goal is to be dead but comfortable. You even have Shaptai's servant statues, who will magically come to life and do your chores in the field of reeds. They are your afterlife interns. You're ordering 400. There is even a field called the Field of Offerings, which is kind of like heaven, if heaven were mostly about grain. There, you'll plough perfect fields, drink endless wine, and nap under a tree shaped like your favorite dream. Unless you were a jerk. Then you're stuck trying to catch a demon's tail forever. You've tried not to be a jerk. Most days. Still, something inside you wonders, what if all this isn't enough? What if the scrolls are wrong? What if Amit is hungrier than usual? What if Maat's feather changes weight with humidity? So, before sleep, you whisper to the gods, all of them, even the weird ones, just in case. You lay back, close your eyes, and imagine that quiet boat again, still, drifting. One hand on your chest, the other curled around a tiny jar of honey. Just in case. The scroll is old, faded, a little singed at the edge from the oil lamp you left burning too close last night. You unroll it slowly, careful not to crack the ink, and read it again. Her voice was the Nile, her eyes two crescents of joy. I shall kiss her fingers like one kisses holy bread. It's a love poem, a real one, not just court flattery or a hymnal metaphor, but actual, sticky sweet, deeply awkward longing. The kind of thing someone writes when they're very much in love, and not nearly as poetic as they think they are. The problem? It's from a pharaoh. To his sister. Yep. Welcome to the heart-shaped labyrinth that is royal romance in ancient Egypt. You'd think, being a living god, you'd have your pick of soulmates. But no. Your love life is less soul connection and more dynastic strategy. Most pharaohs didn't marry for love. They married for bloodline, which, unfortunately, meant marrying people who already shared their blood. Siblings, half-siblings, occasionally cousins who doubled as nieces. The family tree doesn't branch, it circles. The idea was simple. Keep the divine blood pure. The gods married their siblings, after all, Isis and Osiris, Shu and Tefnut. So the logic went. If it's good enough for the deities, it's good enough for you, even if dinner conversations get confusing fast. You remember your own great royal wife chosen not by the stars, but by a very confident astrologer and 3 terrified advisors. She's technically your sister. Or maybe half-sister. Records are murky, especially when someone in the royal family tried to burn the genealogy scroll. She's clever, composed, knows how to smile without promising anything. You've grown used to each other. Some days she even makes you laugh. But love, that's rare, precious, risky. That's why the scroll in your hands feels so dangerous. It was written by a pharaoh generations ago, name erased by a later dynasty, and addressed to a sister wife whose statue was found buried far from any royal tomb. The poem is one of many. Some are flirtatious, some reverent. One is shockingly explicit about fruit metaphors. Historians still argue whether these sibling romances were genuine affection or just political theatre, but the poetry doesn't lie. Someone was in love. Deeply, awkwardly, obsessive. And weirdly, you get it. You've grown up surrounded by people who serve, obey, plot, and flatter, but never love. Not truly. Even your cat has boundaries. So the idea of finding someone who sees you, not the crown, not the divinity, just the actual, possibly confused mortal beneath all that linen, well, it's tempting. Problem is, you're not allowed to just date. You don't send flirty scrawls in secret, unless you're ready to risk a scandal. And romantic gifts? They're complicated. One time you gave a necklace to a court musician. She blushed. The high priest frowned so hard his incense burner went out. Still, there are quiet moments. Glances across the hall. Shared laughter during a chariot inspection. One royal scribe who corrects your grammar just enough to be annoying, but always brings you figs with cinnamon. You've started writing poetry yourself. Not for public eyes. Not for the temple hymns or your tomb walls. Just scribbles on bits of scrap papyrus. Nothing polished. Mostly metaphors about sand and sunlight and the way someone's voice can sound like rain in the desert. You hide them inside your cosmetic box. Because even divine rulers need a diary. There's another ancient poem that makes you pause. My brother comes to me. His sandals dusty from the garden. He does not speak. He only looks. And I forget my name. My brother, in Egyptian love poems, doesn't mean sibling. It's a term of endearment, like beloved or darling. But in your family, that line hits differently. It's hard to untangle divine roles from emotional ones. When the culture says you're Horus, and your wife is Isis, and your sister is both, where do the titles stop and the feelings begin? One priest bold, probably drunk, once joked that your entire dynasty could be solved with a better matchmaking system and a ban on cousin weddings. He's in a monastery now, very quiet, lots of time to meditate on consequences. But even he wasn't wrong. There's a fringe theory among modern scribes that some of the love poetry wasn't written by kings at all, but by the women. Queens, sisters, daughters, all pouring out their words in secret, leaving verses hidden in linen bundles and between wall tiles. You like that theory. It feels true. You remember one queen, long dead now, who built a secret garden just beyond the palace walls. She planted lotus, myrrh, and mint. It was tended by 2 women and guarded by silence. No advisors, no servants, just peace. And, supposedly her lover, an official, far below her rank. They say she wrote him poems on leaves, floated them down the garden stream, and waited for him to collect them at the bend. You almost envy her. Not the secrecy, but the freedom. Your life is carved in stone, every glance recorded, every sigh analysed. You once leaned too long on a balcony and caused a rumour that you were dying. You had a cold. Still, one day, someone may find your poetry, your real words. Not the inscriptions, not the titles, but you. And maybe they'll understand that even pharaohs, even gods on earth, still want someone to walk through a garden with. Someone who doesn't bow. Someone who just and makes you forget your name. The mirror lies. No, really, it's supposed to be bronze, polished to a divine gleam, but today it reflects something more. Human. You lean in, squint, tilt your head. There it is again. A bump, a redness, a blotch, a pimple. You are the Pharaoh, the son of the sun, the living Horus, the divine shepherd of all creation. And you have acne. It's not dramatic yet, just a tiny eruption on your royal forehead. But 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 5. By the end of the week, you look like a spotted egg in gold jewellery, and the palace panic is instant. First, your personal beautician tries scrubbing it off, with crushed barley, sea salt, and something that smells suspiciously like fermented date vinegar. You come out pink, shiny, and deeply sceptical. Then the court physician arrives with a new concoction, powdered ostrich eggshells mixed with honey and goat bile. You try it. You smell like a breakfast disaster, and still look like a constellation. A very irritated constellation. Historians rarely mention this part of the job, the skin, but let's not pretend pharaohs didn't suffer breakouts. You've seen the busts. Some rulers clearly had skin issues, and no amount of divine ancestry fixes hormonal chaos. Take Akhenaten. His statues show a long, smooth face, but also oddly swollen features. Scholars still argue whether he had a genetic disorder, an artistic vision, or just really stubborn glands. Either way, ancient skincare was no joke. Your own routine now includes mud masks from the Red Sea, papyrus extracts, ground carnelian, and, wait for it, powdered lizard tail. Yes, apparently, it draws out the heat. Which is ironic, because now your forehead feels like it's personally hosting Ro's chariot. And don't even get started on the makeup. You try to cover the worst of it with your usual kohl and a dusting of mineral powder, but the kohl smudges. The powder clumps. You end up looking like a sunburned priest caught in a sandstorm. Your advisors pretend not to notice, but their eyes flicker upward every time you speak. The high priest stares at your forehead during a blessing. You consider throwing your headdress at him. Instead, you order a new crown, taller, wider, and with a fringe that just happens to fall right over the trouble area. "It's a new symbol of divine vision," you say solemnly. Everyone nods. Fashion meets function. But the insecurity lingers. Because divine or not, you're still a teenager. A hormonal, sand-sweaty, beetle-bitten mess, trying to rule a kingdom while your own face betrays you. And no one prepared you for this. You visit the temple of Hathor, goddess of beauty, hoping for a divine skincare tip. The priestess offers you a charm, a paste of rose petals and frankincense, and a prayer. You smear it on, and immediately sneeze for 3 hours. There's a fringe belief, one your nursemaid swears by. That clear skin comes from drinking moonlight. You try it. You sit under the stars with a cup of water all night, then drink it before dawn. It tastes like disappointment. You send for a Nubian healer, famous for curing rashes and boils. He arrives with a pouch of dried herbs and the confidence of someone who doesn't answer to gods. He takes one look at you and says, "Stop touching your face." You never feel so called out in your life. Still, you try it. You stop. It helps. A little. And then one day, it's gone. You wake up, stumble to the mirror, and smooth. Clear. A forehead worthy of sculpture. You stare at yourself. You blink. You whisper a thank you to every god, cat, and crocodile in your bloodline. You walk into court like a new sun. No more hiding behind gold fringes. No more panic. The scribes say you look radiant. The dancers sing about your flawless visage. The royal painter starts a new mural and doesn't ask to fix anything. You pretend to be humble. But you keep the wide crown anyway. Just in case. And maybe, just maybe, you start treating yourself a little kinder. Because now you know what it feels like to wear insecurity like a second robe. You understand that even a god on earth can feel like hiding behind a curtain on a bad skin day. You even write a scroll. Not an edict, not a law, just a note to yourself. When your skin flares, do not curse the gods. Curse the dust. Then wash your face, wear your crown, and walk tall. You hide the scroll behind your mirror. One day, someone might find it. And smile. Your jaw hurts. Not from speeches or ceremonial yawning, though both happen more than you'd like, but from something more primal, more human, more annoying. A toothache. At first, it was just a twinge when you bit into a dried fig. Then it became a full throb, echoing through your skull, down your neck and into your very soul. You tried ignoring it. You tried chanting over it. You even tried pretending it was some sort of divine signal from Anubis. It was not. So now you're sitting in the palace infirmary, staring at your royal dentist. He's wearing a leopard-skin sash, a nervous smile, and holding what appears to be a bronze chisel. You start to sweat. Dentistry in ancient Egypt is creative. Toothaches are common, especially among the elite. You eat soft bread filled with tiny bits of grit from the grinding stones. Over time, this turns your molars into sad little mountains of misery. Historians know this because they've studied your ancestors' skulls. Broken teeth, exposed nerves, abscesses the size of olives. One mummy's jaw showed signs of having rotted completely. Yikes. The ancient Egyptian diet may be divine, but it's not kind to enamel. The royal dentist offers you a mixture of natron, goose fat, and ground sycamore bark. He calls it a poultice. You call it a mud pie of lies. Still, you let him apply it. It stings. A lot. He says that means it's working. You suspect that means he has no idea what he's doing. He then offers to relieve pressure by tapping the sore tooth with a tiny hammer. You ask if there's another option. He shrugs and starts lighting incense. This is not encouraging. To distract yourself, you think about ancient dental wisdom. There's a scroll in the temple library, written by some long-dead healer who listing dental remedies. It includes everything from garlic paste to ground cow hooves. One entry suggests smearing crushed onions on your gums and humming to Hathor. You tried that once. It did not work. There's even a fringe theory, favoured by slightly drunk temple scribes, that the gods originally gave humans perfect teeth, but they were cursed by Set after someone ate a sacred pomegranate without offering it first. You believe it, mostly because you'd like to blame someone for the dull throb in your mouth that's currently louder than the palace drums. The dentist finishes his poultice. He assures you that by tomorrow, the pain will be gone. You don't believe him. You try chewing on the other side of your mouth. That works. For a while. Until your other teeth start getting jealous. Or tired. Or just decide to hurt in solidarity. One of your scribes tells you that Ramses II had over 50 children and no teeth by the end of his life. He ruled for decades with nothing but soup and defiance. You're not sure whether to admire him or cry into your honey. Desperate, you visit the House of Life again. You ask one of the physicians if there's a magical cure for toothache. He nods sagely and recommends a fresh mouse, sliced in half, placed on the gum. You stare at him. He blinks. You do not slice a mouse. Instead, you retreat to your private quarters and try your own concoction, mashed fig, mint, and a prayer. You hold it against your cheek. It tastes oddly pleasant. The pain fades slightly. Victory. But it returns the next morning, like clockwork, like karma. One of your attendants mentions a Nubian remedy, chewing on a stick from the Salvadora persica tree. You try it. It works. Sort of. You feel like a well-groomed beaver, but the pain is less. You carry the stick around now, like a scepter, but for your face. The court starts whispering. The Divine One has chosen wood over wisdom. You ignore them. You're in survival mode. Eventually the pain eases. Your dentist congratulates himself. You do not thank him. You just nod and toss the bronze chisel into a drawer marked, "Things I regret." Later that night, as you sip warm beer through a reed straw, you think about all the things no one tells you when you become Pharaoh. No one warns you about itchy linen, or sandal blisters, or papyrus cuts, or toothaches that make you question your very bloodline. You consider adding a new spell to your Book of the Dead. O Thoth, grant me wisdom. O Sekhmet, grant me strength. O any god with teeth, any please grant me mercy. You decide to sleep on your side that night, the non-toothache side. And in the morning, if the pain is gone, you promise to offer a prayer of thanks. And maybe, just maybe, a tiny mouse. There's a strange wind blowing through the palace tonight. Not a breeze, not a gust. Something older, heavier. It smells of copper, oil and smoke. The kind of wind that makes torches flicker and servants murmur prayers under their breath. You feel it too, a chill down the spine, a tension in the jaw. You tighten your robe, step into your sandals, and walk out into the courtyard. The stars are too quiet, and the palace is too still. Something is coming, and judging by the way your cat is hiding under the altar again, it's not a good something. You head to the Hall of Scrolls, where your most trusted scribe is waiting with a message. Not a formal report, not a tax scroll, a warning. There's been unrest in the southern province. Again. You skim the details. Crops failing, wells drying, temples closed, people whispering that the gods are angry. And who do they blame? You. Because if the Nile doesn't flood, it means Pharaoh's favour with the gods is fading. If there's disease, famine, misfortune, someone must be cursed. And curses? Well, Egypt has those in spades. You've tried to ignore them. The old rumours, the broken omens, the priests muttering about the balance being upset. You assumed they'd quiet down. They haven't. In fact, they're multiplying. This morning, a statue in the Temple of Canaan wept. Not metaphorically. Someone swears it dripped black resin from its eyes. Another claimed to see vultures circling over the palace at noon, an omen of collapse. And then there's the unsettling thing found in your bedchamber. A wax figure shaped like you, with needles in the heart and a broken nose. You didn't put it there. You send for the high priest. He arrives, flanked by his advisors, all of them more nervous than usual. You demand answers. He speaks slowly, carefully. There are those within the priesthood who feel the gods are no longer being honoured. You don't blink. Because I moved an altar 2 feet to the left. He clears his throat. Because you burn incense to a 10 at sunrise. The sun, again. You knew it would come back to bite you, but you didn't expect it to come with wax dolls and veiled threats. Still, the priests stop short of open rebellion, which means they're scared, and scared people do dangerous things. Later that day, your physician reports an illness among your kitchen staff. High fevers, cold sweats. One has gone blind in one eye. Some whisper it's punishment. Others suspect poison. You order a full investigation. And then there's the funeral. You didn't expect to attend one this week. Especially not this one. A guard. Young. Loyal. You remember his face. He died in his sleep. The priest assigned to his burial insists it was divine removal. You're not so sure. You accompany the procession to the tomb. It's a quiet affair. Low chanting, slow drums, incense thick enough to choke. As they lower the body, you feel eyes on you, watching from the cliffs, from behind statues, from behind smiles. You're starting to suspect that someone, somewhere, wants you gone. Politically, physically, eternally. So you start asking questions. And you don't like the answers. A minor priest from the temple of Sekhmet confesses, after too much wine, that there's talk of removal. Not assassination, not yet, but replacement. Pharaohs have been dethroned before, quietly, bloodlessly, just replaced. You ask who started the talk. He says nothing. You exile him anyway. And then you find the scroll. Hidden in the corner of the temple library. A banned text, charred edges, faint script. It tells of a pharaoh who dared challenge the gods, who welcomed foreign ideas, shifted rituals, questioned Mayat itself. The gods cursed him, the land dried, the people turned, and in the chaos that followed, there were rumours of cannibalism. At first you think it's symbolic, but no, the scroll is disturbingly literal. In times of collapse, when the Nile failed and grain stores emptied, there were whispers of sacrifices, more intimate, whole families disappearing, bones found in sacred pits. Historians still argue whether it ever really happened, whether the stories of priests eating human flesh were just metaphors for political betrayal. But the scroll doesn't read like metaphor. It reads like a warning. And suddenly, the palace doesn't feel so sacred anymore. One of your servants goes missing. Then another. A harem girl is found curled in the garden, muttering about black birds in her eyes and blood in the temple water. You double the guards. You seal the palace gates. You stop attending ceremonies at night. Because you're Pharaoh, and pharaohs aren't supposed to fear their own priests. But now, you do. You begin sleeping with a knife under your pillow, a curved blade etched with tiny prayers. You don't know if it's protection or paranoia. You just know it helps. And the dreams get worse. You see yourself on the scale, heart on one side, a feather on the other. But the gods don't weigh it. They eat it, one by one, quietly, without blinking. You wake up sweating. Your cat doesn't come to you that night. Even she knows when something's off. At dawn, you burn your old offerings and leave nothing in their place. Because if they're watching, so are you. You're losing count of days, of friends, of who's still loyal and who's only pretending. The palace halls feel longer, colder, the shadows thicker. Even the sunlight, your old friend Atem, seems dimmer, like it's hesitating. The worst part? You're not dead yet. You walk through the Hall of Ancestors, your footsteps echoing off carved walls where your forebears stare down at you in silent judgment. Ramses, Seti, Thutmose, all purposely still, purposely preserved. Their names carved deep in stone, their eyes painted wide with eternal confidence. You don't feel like them. Because lately your story's been rewriting itself, and not in your favour. It starts subtly. A statue of you in the Temple of Montu is accidentally removed. A festival hymn leaves your name out. One of your birth cartouches is chiselled out of a public mural. Just a neat oval of nothing, like you were never there. You order it repaired. The workers nod. The scribe apologises. But you know what this is. Erasure. It's a death more permanent than poison or war. Egyptians believe a person lives as long as their name is spoken, as long as their image endures. So what happens when both begin to vanish? You already know. It happened before. Hatshepsut, once pharaoh, once divine, once ruler in her own right. Her name was scraped from monuments, her images smashed, her story twisted into footnotes. It didn't kill her body, just her legacy. You pass a statue of her in your private collection, damaged, worn, face cracked like dry earth. You had it rescued from a temple storeroom. No one talks about it. No one dares. You do. Not this time, you whisper. But the pattern continues. A festival scroll is rewritten with your father's name in your place. A tribute statue shows a generic king, any king with your crown but not your face. You summon your scribes. You demand. They glance at one another. One speaks, voice tight. We were told to make the records safer. Safer. The most dangerous word in the palace. You sit silently while they fidget. The one who spoke most breaks into a sweat. You dismiss them without another word. They bow too deeply, as if they're afraid you'll disappear while they're looking. That night, you visit your tomb in prayer. The entrance is sealed, but you have the key. Inside, the walls are still fresh. Wet paint glows in torchlight. Your name is everywhere. Your face beams from golden walls. You run your hand across a carved panel. It feels solid. Real. You leave a mark. Your fingerprint in the corner of the stone. It's not divine. It's not official. But it's yours. You pause before you leave. Then you order the workers to stop all painting. You seal the tomb again. Let the walls rest, untouched. Because maybe you won't be remembered for what's seen. Maybe you'll be remembered for what survived. Later, back at court, you hear rumours of a second tomb. Yours. But not. Smaller, hasty, different. You investigate. Quietly. A corridor outside the palace leads to an old, unused chamber, once a storage room for ceremonial oils. Inside you find carvings, crude, shallow, and yet unmistakable. Your name. But not in royal cartouche, just scratched into the wall, like graffiti. You stare at it. This fake tomb, this shadow place. It's a decoy, a redirection, something someone built to mislead or protect. Historians still argue whether some pharaohs built multiple tombs, not just for misdirection, but as a form of self-preservation. Hide the body, hide the truth, maybe even hide from the gods themselves. You begin to wonder, maybe this was always the plan? A life above, a legacy below, a third life in between. Meanwhile, the thefts begin. Your temple treasury is lighter. Sacred rings go missing. A royal chalice disappears from the hall of offerings. You accuse the priests. They blame servants. Servants blame drought. The vizier blames chaos. No one looks you in the eye. And still the records twist. A scribe forgets your latest law. A stela is recarved with the name of a distant general. Even the festival dancers change their choreography. No more gestures of praise toward the throne. Your throne. You begin writing your own scrolls, in secret, personal history, the real version. You hide them in jars, behind bricks, beneath floor tiles. You pray someone finds them one day. Because even if your face is chipped away, even if your name is swallowed by silence, the truth will linger. You hope. And then the final betrayal. You find your funerary mask. The one you commissioned, designed, pored over in agony. It's gone. Not stolen, replaced. A new mask now rests on your funerary table, similar but different. The nose sharper, the jaw wider, the inscription altered, subtle changes, but unmistakable. It isn't you. It's someone else. Someone becoming you. You ask no one. You say nothing. You just stare. And then you laugh. Because if they think they can erase you with a mask and a few swapped names, they haven't learned what you have. That immortality isn't gold, or tombs, or songs. It's ink. It's fragments. It's fingerprints on stone. And you've left yours everywhere. The palace is quiet now. Too quiet. You've grown used to footsteps, to whispers, to the constant rustle of linen and soft slam of scrolls. But now, even the shadows seem to hesitate. The torches flicker, sure, but no one's refilling them. No servants sweep the courtyard. No priests hover at your elbow with incense and judgment. It's like the world is holding its breath, because the end is near. Not a war, not a collapse, just stillness. You step out onto the balcony of your private quarters. Below, the Nile crawls like liquid obsidian. The city lights have dimmed. The people are silent, and in the distance, a single ibis takes flight, white against the purple dusk. You watch it disappear. So this is how it ends. Not with a knife, not with a fire, but with something far more subtle. You've been Pharaoh long enough to know when the story is shifting away from you. You feel it in your bones, a slow fade, a soft unravelling. The advisors still bow, the guards still salute, the scribes still write. But they no longer write your name. Not first, anyway. Not in bold ink. Sometimes not at all. They've already chosen your successor. He's not a son, not a brother, just a figure, familiar enough to comfort the people, new enough to rewrite the narrative. His name has started appearing in festival plans. One of your statues now wears his crown. You haven't seen him yet. You don't need to. Because this was always the risk. Every pharaoh builds two legacies, one carved in stone, and one whispered in shadows. And the second one? That's the one that lasts. You walk back inside. Your tomb is finished. Your false tombs too. The paintings are sealed, the spells written. Your Shakti servants lined up, arms crossed, forever ready. Your body, when the time comes, will be wrapped with care. You've already chosen the linen bleached with desert sun and sacred salt. The resin mixture is perfect. Not too much. Myrrh. You don't want to wake up sticky. You'll be buried with your cat, and your monkey, and your regrets. You've made peace with that. You sit at your writing table, unroll one final scrawl. It's not for the priests, not for the gods. It's for whoever finds this. You write. I was Pharaoh. I ruled. I fell. I lived. But I was never just a name. I was a child. I was afraid. I loved. I questioned. And I saw the sun not as a god, but as a mirror. You sign it, not with a title, just your name. Then, slowly, you rise. The wind outside changes, a cooler current now, almost gentle. You walk to the ceremonial chamber where your crown still rests. You touch it, once. It doesn't feel heavy anymore. You look in the mirror. You don't see Horus. You see yourself. Older, tired, still standing. You extinguish the oil lamp. The flame flickers, dies. And for the first time in your life, you are completely, beautifully alone. So now, just breathe. The palace fades behind you. The Nile slips into dream. The torches are all out. Even the gods have closed their eyes. You're not Pharaoh anymore. You're not anyone. You're just drifting, weightless, timeless. The desert doesn't speak, not tonight. It wraps around you like silk, like linen, like quiet. Somewhere, the stars still burn. But they don't ask anything of you. They don't care if you were loved, or feared, or erased. They just are. The wind moves gently through the reeds. The ibis calls once more. Soft, like a memory you're ready to forget. And now, even the memory of power fades. No more scrolls to sign. No more statues to pose for. No more feathers to balance on divine scales. Just rest. No temples, no tombs, no titles. Only stillness. Only sleep. Let it hold you now. Let it carry you. You've walked the long road, worn the heavy crown, hid the ache behind coal and linen and silence. But tonight, you need carry nothing. You've told the story. You can let it go. Let the gold fade. Let the sand fall. Let the breath soften. You're safe now. You're free. You are nothing. You are everything. You are dust and fire and feather. You are gone. You are home. The story ends here. Close your eyes. Drift deep. Sweet dreams.